a show about tabletop gaming from stand-up comedians.
Let's hear it for Javier Palenzuela.
This next gentleman, he's cute, he's got a ponytail. Give it up for one hot hair farmer. Let's hear it for Ed Shannon.
Welcome back to the Gamers of Comedy Show. I'm Javier Palenzuela, and I'm here with the creators and originators of the upcoming second annual AetherCon RPG Online Convention. Did I say that right?
That's actually AetherCon.
AetherCon. Okay, the AetherCon Convention. Canadian.
Confirmed or deny the allegations.
Well, please introduce yourselves.
My name is Stephen J. Holoditsky. I'm the event coordinator.
I'm Curtis Baum. I'm the vendor hall liaison.
And I'm Mark Carroll. I'm the Bell and Scroll liaison, which means I'm the guy that talks to various blogs and podcasts and such, and I'm also the Call of Cthulhu event coordinator.
Mark also has a further portfolio as in without portfolio. We just kind of throw things at him. Here, do this. So
I don't want to deal with this, Mark. Your turn.
yeah.
He picks up the pieces.
Yeah.
So it's November 15th, right? And 15th, 16th, and 17th. And it utilizes some new technology when it comes to online tabletop. Am I correct? Are you guys using Roll20?
Yeah. It is an online tabletop convention, which means it has no physical location. The two virtual tabletops we're using are Roll20 and Inferno. Both are free and browser-based, and we wanted to make sure that we removed as many barriers to participation as possible. And we found that by doing it in that way, we have removed the monetary barrier and the technological barrier. New this year, we're using AnyMeeting for all of our panels, all of the live publisher Q&As, and all of the Artist Enclave, which is, again, also free and browser-based.
Great. So can we talk about some of the exciting things that you can expect to experience when you log on to AetherCon on November 15th or that weekend?
Let's go with Curtis. You want to answer that?
I knew you were coming. All right. Some of the fun things we got coming up at AetherCon, aside from a vendors hall that is significantly larger than last year, and the vendors are very interactive. Last year we had a few of them not quite as outspoken as they wanted to be, so we've got opened up and set up question and answer panels for the vendors, so you can come in, you can learn about their new products and what's going on, and then you can run a demo with them right after that to see what's going on. We've got swag completely unparalleled from previous as well. We're handing out stuff from vendors, like as an example, Adventure Week is giving out a 1-month membership to everybody who shows up. We've got free handouts for the GMs, we got free handouts for the players, we got we even have one of the artists is doing a free drawing for all the vendors. All the vendors that signed up for the vendor hall have a chance of winning a free half-page illustration from him. And that's, what was the artist? I don't have that off the top of my head.
John Gibbons.
That's John Gibbons, yeah.
Yeah, John Gibbons out of the UK.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really something else. We are trying to break away from just a gaming convention. You get around, you play games, which we all love, don't get us wrong. But we've got Tracy Hickman coming and showing off his new board game.
Great.
We've got Paizo running an insanely large event. We're working with a few other vendors that haven't officially confirmed yet, so I'm not going to reveal names, but we're trying to get a lot of industry backing, so this feels a lot more like a physical convention, where you've got vendors, you got tables, you got all sorts of fun stuff, free gifts, swag as I mentioned, and we got just a lot going on. So we're trying to make it more like a physical convention, even though it's in cyberspace, than just a get around and gaming.
That's a great, and the whole concept behind this online gaming convention is awesome, because I have a lot of family members that love to game and friends, and you get separated by space as you move on with your life. You move away, or it just can't get out to these big conventions like Gen Con or so being able to log on and just jump into a convention, the whole idea behind that is great, and I'm happy that it's moving forward. But what would you say is your biggest challenges in putting this together? Mostly just all the different communications involved, or?
Mark, you want to grab that?
Yeah, it's definitely coordination does tend to be a bit of an issue. It's funny because in the age of the internet, we've got an unparalleled ability to communicate with other people, but that everybody is talking all at once. So it's a question of being able to be heard over the literal sea of voices out there. There are tools for that, but you got to generally email, you got to general Facebook, you got to general IMs, and it's a challenge, to say the least.
Yeah, Mark hit on something that kind of leans into your previous question about the technology we're using too. That's one of the reasons we went with any meeting, is to kind of control the flow of communication from artists and vendors, so that when somebody coughs, for example, it doesn't interrupt the artist working or the vendor talking. So any meeting we found is very good that way, because it gives better moderator controls. So we're addressing some of those concerns we've got as far as communication, like Mark mentioned. Not only in emails, we're using Facebook to communicate with a lot of different vendors and a lot of different artists and panelists, etc. But also we're looking at running the convention in a method very similar to a physical convention, so that you've got moderators, you've got the artists and the vendors and the game designers all able to speak without it being a technological collision of somebody just with a loud microphone and happens to cough at the wrong time.
Like chat room stuff that you end up, it comes off less like a chat room, more like an actual convention.
Yeah, exactly.
Ideally, what would happen there is that the people who are in the quote-unquote audience, they would type in their questions on the AnyMeeting chat module to the left, and then the host and the guest would be talking via video voice. So it really cleans up the environment. It gives the host a lot more control of that environment, which is why we went with it, as Curtis mentioned.
And that brings me to an interesting. I went to Gen Con this year and did some panels, and there's a Q&A usually, after or at some point during the panels. The AnyMeeting software is going to allow people to ask questions in an organized manner.
Yeah, they will. I mean, everyone who wants to ask a question will type that question into the chat module, and the host will, obviously keep an eye on that chat module, and as those questions come up, you'll then relay them to the guest. And the guest will then, of course, expound on that question.
That's great. That's great. And for people who don't know much about the Roll20 software and some of the other software that you guys will be using for the actual gameplay, what are the interesting features about that software that will be prominently displayed at AetherCon?
We have a guy, another Mark Stout, who's our tech coordinator, and from my experience, I like Roll20 simply because it allows for a lot more. But on the other hand, it allows lots of graphics and stuff like that. There is a lot of stuff there you can use. It has dice macros, for example, which are great. On the other hand, Inferno does not have as steep a learning curve. And it's more or less, it's like a whiteboard you can move tokens around on. And for someone who just, wants to take a small step before taking a big step, Inferno is a good place to start. We're trying to get new people into online gaming, and so we want to make it as easy as possible for them to do that.
Great. That sounds awesome. So you're saying that there'll be not just role-playing games at this convention. There'll be other types of games.
Tracy Hickman, for example, is actually running a board game.
Oh wow!
That he's running on virtually, and I imagine he's going to use Roll20 for it. Just from conversations I've had with Tracy. But he's got a new one he just kickstarted called Sojourner Tales, and it's actually a board game that ties in with a electronic device. It's like a Kindle, for example. So you roll the dice, you walk around the board, you draw cards from time to time, and you click buttons on an electronic device like his Kindle, as I said, and it changes what's going on in the game. And so he's really excited to. Tracy and Laura, I talked to them at Comic-Con here in Salt Lake City, are both very excited about having an online convention. They think it's kind of the direction, of the future, as it were. They're really techno-savvy compared to a lot of people who've been in the industry as long as they have.
And me.
Steven has a hard time activating his microphone, as you noticed,
but... when you talk about swag, are you talking about PDFs or or electronic stuff? I mean, what kind of? I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but
Mark, you want to grab that?
Yeah, absolutely. These are, and it's something of a barrier, still, amazingly enough, to overcome in gaming. That when you give out something like a PDF, people think of it as a virtual product. That's a real product. For example, when I work in the game industry as a writer, most of the stuff that I've done, with a very few exceptions, has been in PDF. So that's another challenge to overcome. But at the same time, it allows AetherCon to actually give out more swag in terms of just the sheer variety and volume of stuff that people just get for free, or as prizes, that you would get at a physical convention, because you've got that electronic portability there.
right. Well, electronic, the PDFs are huge now because of the tablets and Drive-Thru RPG and some of these companies that have really monetized the whole PDF revolution as it is of gaming.
Yeah. One thing that's actually important there is not all the prizes are actually PDFs either. Alyssa Fadden, for example, is sending out physical copies of a lot of products. She's mailing them herself.
Wow.
Alyssa's sweet.
Yeah.
Alyssa's a fun gal to work with.
She's a groovy cat. For the convention program packet, she's actually sending out a one copy of Torn World, and which has, if I'm not mistaken, 36 different miniatures designed by what's his name? Weiss, or what's his first name? Geez, I have to look it up now. He does cargo cult. He's pretty much worked with everybody in the industry. He's almost legendary. Now I can't think of his name. Oh boy. But I think it's Jacob Weiss. Does that sound right to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is Jacob?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, boy. What a great shout out.
Do it, Google search.
Yeah.
Wiki is your friend.
Absolutely.
Not today.
Another good example of that is Obatron is actually sending out print versions as well of a lot of their stuff.
But only in North America.
Yeah, if it's in North America. Otherwise, you're infecting me. It's a little too high, so they'll provide PDFs if it's outside. So you got vendors who have that kind of option as well, and that's something that we're really looking forward to.
Well, the great thing for vendors is that the availability of, just like it's hard for people to get out to convention sometimes, it's hard for vendors to get their word out on their products to people without spending a ton of money traveling to these conventions. And the online convention allows for their voices to be heard and they can concentrate more on what the message is than just getting across the country.
Yeah, we've actually had one thing that we're really excited about in regards to that is most of our vendors are not what you call big Class A vendors. Okay, we do have Paizo, we do have Catalyst, we do have a lot of really big guys there, don't get me wrong. But you get some smaller companies. I work with Adventure a Week, for example. They've been able to bounce around a little bit. They were at Gen Con, for example, but they really don't have the budget to travel a lot. So you get it online, you get it free, you get it everything that the little guy needs to get their product in the hands of their potential consumers. It is just beautiful for them. And so we've had a lot of the little guys jump on board saying, oh, please let me join. And it's been wonderful. We've got how many vendors are we up to, Stephen? Like 20, 25?
Yeah, we're in the 20s. that I know.
Yeah, and last year, at the time of the convention last year, we had, you said 15?
Yeah, something 15 or 16.
Yeah.
So we've definitely gone up.
Yeah, and as I said, we're still working with a couple of the big guys, Class A's and Class B's. who aren't sure if they have the time to do it right now. We have had a few that had to back out. We already had other commitments. I'm sorry, and that happens. But we're getting a lot more eager to hop on board than we have in the past.
I do have to make a correction. It is Jason White from Carver. Not Jacob.
Very close. 2 letters off.
Yes.
Depending on how you spell either one of them, you might even be closer to that.
Yeah.
Free online swag.
Written by Curtis here, who's got some pretty good professional creds to his name with Adventure Week, and now I believe D3 Adventures. We have a Shadowrun tournament written by Ray Rigel, who's one of their lead demo agents, and we have a Call of Cthulhu tournament written by Cthulhu Bob Baker. Out of Utah. There's actually 2 Cthulhu Bobs out there. There's also a Cthulhu Bob Lovely from Montana, but we have Cthulhu Bob Baker. So it can be confusing, but it's kind of fun. So we got those 3 coming up. As Curtis mentioned, we have a massive Paisley event coming up. There's going to be more Shadowrun games also added. We're just going through the logistics of getting that entered at the moment. We're looking to have a decent amount of games there, in addition to the tournament. So we're happy with that.
Okay, one of our chat listeners has a question for you guys from Stana. It says, apparently there's another online gaming convention that's skewed towards women, electronic convention. What is going to set AetherCon apart from other potential competitors, or do you feel as if you're the forefront of what is a new wave of gaming?
We make no claim to, being the gaming convention. I mean, that's never why we got into this to begin with. We were never meant to be Money Mountain. We were never meant to be Stairway to the Stars or anything like that. We just want to bring people together. And that's been our overarching purpose for doing this. And we're more than happy to work with anyone who wants to work with us. It happened in the summer, the Women's Gaming Convention that was put on by women. But we're happy to work with anybody.
We're really firm in our belief that the genre needs to work together as a whole rather than be divisive. So we're not trying to be the better than X or the only solution for Y. That's not really what we're in this for. Our hope is to get together and run a convention beyond just sitting down having games like we talked about, but involving vendors, involving question and answer panels, involving product reviews, involving everything you get at a live physical convention without having to travel. In many cases, you can be in your slippers and pajamas for all the care. Keep it decent if you're on a webcam, but that's our goal. Our goal is to make it so anybody can show up, anybody can be there, and they'll have the same experience they have at a real convention without the lines, the hassle, the crowds, and the weird people wearing spandex.
As far as you know.
So you can wear spandex at home if you wish.
More power to you.
Before we started this podcast, you guys were talking a little bit about how clicky gamers can get. And I know that has a little bit to do with the organization, and I'm sure it's difficult to organize all these so-called cliques. You think AetherCon is going to help in bringing everybody together? And
Mark, you want to grab that?
Absolutely. That's one of the great things, despite all the challenges, that is one of the great things about having an online convention, about bringing people together that can't physically travel or don't have the cash to physically travel to a convention. And you'll hear a lot of people, and I can speak from experience, some of it's true, that say that the lack of identity and accountability online tends to bring out the worst in folks. And to an extent, that's true. I was the primary forum administrator for electronic arts for 3 years running. And I like to tell people I have seen things that popped up on there that would turn their hair white. But at the same time, I honestly think that the kind of environment that we're providing at AetherCon, and for that matter, all the other virtual conventions, because it really is a community. We're trying to bring people together, not just for gaming, but for that sense of community, to get people exposed to new ideas, to get them talking about gaming, talking about the kind of culture that we in, and especially talking about the community.
And so, do you think there will be a need to I don't know, moderate people's behavior in this type of situation, given the fact that sometimes people lose control of themselves online?
Absolutely. Moderation is important, but just as important is to make that moderation as transparent and unintrusive as possible. There's always going to be somebody that wants to spoil things simply for the hellacious joy of spoiling it. But again, speaking from experience, being a person that moderated online community, those people are really the minority. They really are. And everybody else simply wants to do their thing. They want to have fun. They want to enjoy themselves. And that's what we're trying to facilitate.
Well, one thing Mark touched on, and actually relates back to the clicks and getting everything in and friendly together. I was actually sitting down with one local gaming store after Comic-Con a couple weeks ago, and we talked about the barrier to entry in a lot of different ways. You've got, if you want a new game, you got to buy a book for it. There's $50. You're not sure you're going to like it or not. You got to find local gamers, which is getting very, very hard, like we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
And so, a situation where you've got an online convention like this, you already have somebody who has the books, or a couple different games that really starting to put out their main core rule books for free or dirt cheap or PDF format.
Right.
So that barrier's dropped a lot. And so now you can say, okay, I've always wanted to play X. If I find a game to play it, I can at least see if I like it, and I'm not out $60 and calling, my third cousin to see if he wants to play. So there's a lot of things there that also can come together to help break down these barriers. If you haven't played, I'll pick on Pathfinder 4th edition. That's a good argument. You like one or you like the other, and I'm not going to say which one I prefer. That they've already mentioned it, but that's not the point. You've got a different set, and they're very different rules and very different feels. But now instead of buying $100 worth of 4th edition books, or $50 for a Pathfinder book, you can sit down and test it and see which one you really like before you really get started. And you already have a gaming group. We're hoping that these friendships, when you meet around a game, you got the GM and say 6 players, those 7 people, we're hoping at least a couple of them keep in touch and game over the long haul. I've got on my Skype list 3 or 4 gamers that I played a zombie game with last AetherCon still. There's that potential to build the industry and involve people year round as well.
Well, that's great. It's an interesting strategy to go about it that way. Find the gamer group first, then find the game. Because I'm known to be a game killer. Whenever I start playing a game, that's exactly when it goes out of play or it gets killed. My favorite games all die as soon as I start to love them. It's kind of a curse.
Well, I was giving Steven some stories about why I'm a GM rather than a player. So I hear you. I tend to break games apart unintentionally.
Yeah.
I play my character, but my method of playing characters is like a pacifist priest. Let's face it, nobody wants to play D&D. That game, that party lasted a week. But
that's funny because we have a web series called Game Nights that's over at criticalhitmedia.com, and one of the characters, it's a half animated, half live action, where the characters will voice their animated characters as we cut back and forth like ADD style. And one of the characters is exactly that. He's like, in real life he's a hippie, and his animated character is a cleric pacifist. But honestly, though, it's hard to parody sometimes. These games get so. I knew a friend who basically didn't want to role play because he was more into the combat, so he just made his character mute. Yeah.
Unless they speak giraffe sign language.
I have had a character whose nickname was actually mute. He spoke seldom, but it's I don't. I've always enjoyed voicing my character, and I actually work hard to get a good voice for my characters when I'm in a game, and I find that to be one of the more enjoyable aspects of gaming. And because of where I am, there's not a whole lot of local quote-unquote talent to game with. So I'm really thankful that I've got the option of gaming online, and I can do this thing I've always liked to do, and I don't, I'm not smothered by the fact that there's nothing here to do, there's no one here to do it with.
Well, that's an interesting point you bring up. By doing online gaming, especially online role playing, you can really imagine the person. You can get, because you have that anonymity in a sense. It can your imagination can go further as to who these people are. You can definitely dive in there.
Or you can keep that shield, for lack of a better word, the shield of anonymity, if you need to, or you can reveal it a little bit at a time. Primary example, okay, I play MechWarrior Online, and I'm in a very, very, very large unit. They were looking for somebody to run games. This is dated almost a year ago now. Somebody to run some games for them. I've been GMing for 20, 30, oh god, years. And
wow.
So I volunteered. Yeah, back when we were playing on Papyrus.
The dice were made of bones.
Yeah. Oh man, they bring back ancient memories. But so I said, okay, fine, I'll GM, because nobody can find a group nearby. Nobody. Okay. So from that one game, and I've told this story a million times, but from that one group, okay, we formed a Wednesday Pathfinder game, which is kicking back in. We took a break over the summer. Our Wednesday GMT Pathfinder game. I actually play with a bunch of Europeans. We have a German with an axe. He's very scary. We have our Tuesday MechWarrior game. We had a Sunday Shadowrun game, which I kind of backed off on that one because it was the only day I actually saw my wife. So I kind of figured family life is important. But from all this group saying, we wish we could find a group to play with, and there we go. Now some of them are still fairly anonymous to me. I don't know them very well. Others, like Laura, we started chatting with. Laura lives, I think I figured out 2,500 miles from me. But we chit-chat a lot now. I know that she was in San Francisco for a convention this weekend. I know that she'll be back running a demo of the tournament actually tomorrow for me. So that shield's gone down a little bit. So we're sharing stories, we're sharing events, and that's very similar to what happened when I started playing EverQuest. I got friends in Rhode Island I've never met. I've got friends in New York I've never met. I know what's going on with their kids. I know what their favorite color is. One of them's dyeing their hair purple.
That's more than I know about my neighbor.
I don't even want to know my neighbors. That's another story. Last week I went out and met somebody I met in EverQuest. If you follow D&D for a while, you recognize the name.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've actually met him. I've known him for 15 years. I met him last week.
You knew his character better than you knew him.
One of my best buddies. What's that?
That's great. Well, you get to know his... And I've always thought that it's interesting, the characters people... Like, when you play, especially in a role-playing game with somebody you don't know, you sort of get to know them from a different angle because they're playing a character, and the psychology of role-playing has always been the most fascinating part for me. If you can be anybody anybody else, who would you choose to be? And why? And so...
Well, cool. I guess I could tell you the way that I got into RPGs, because that's actually a fairly illustrated story, and I promise it won't be one of my hour-and-a-half long ones. My father was a drug abuse counselor at an inpatient facility down in San Antonio here in Texas.
Wow.
And he had an apartment on site. I wandered around the facility a lot, which maybe was not the smartest thing to do sometimes. But I wandered across a group of fellas playing, and I don't know if anybody else remembers this, just to kind of give away, the old Peace Center version of Chill, the horror RPG.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I owned RPGs. I had D&D, I had the old Boulder-based stuff, I had Star Frontiers, I had Gamma World, but living in the barrio in San Antonio, it's not exactly a great environment to run into people playing. And at the age of 9, nobody's going to take you seriously. But I wandered over and I started talking to these guys. They're all ex-convicts, basically out on probation, trying to get their lives together. They're playing this RPG, and I'm like, "Are you guys playing?" And I ended up becoming basically the unofficial mascot of the group, which was fantastic. They taught me a lot. And these were guys, like I said, that were trying to get their lives back together, that really saw RPGs as a way, as a doorway to be somebody different.
Yep.
And in the end, they all turned out pretty well. One of them ended up becoming, and this is kind of funny, one of them ended up becoming the director of the facility a few years down. So I absolutely hear you on the assumption of another role, of being another person in RPGs. That's one of my favorite things.
Absolutely, and that's interesting. That role playing has been used for years in therapy, so it's really nothing new in that sense.
It's a great way of opening up and showing you some potential, or you can look at it a little bit on the other side, and how bad you can get if you don't change your ways, sort of thing. So there's a lot there. Or work through situations. They've used it in business management. They used it in therapy, like you said. So it's not new, not by any stretch.
Yeah. Okay, we have another question. Do you think that the economy and the state of the economy is going to help drive the attendance at AetherCon?
For us, the fact, like I said, we're trying to lower a lot of barriers for folks to come to our event, and one of those barriers was a monetary barrier. Therefore, AetherCon is free to attend. There are no game fees. You don't have to pay to enter a game. The only thing you would end up paying for would be if you want to buy something from one of the vendors, or if you want to commission something from one of the artists. Okay. The artists themselves, they're all putting up free downloadable wallpapers, which are really great. They've got some really good ones out there right now. But one, there's a large point to be made here, and that is just strictly from an economic point of view. Folks, we need to band together. We've gone over this theme before, because there's not a, if you look at where the entertainment dollar goes, not a lot of it comes towards tabletop role-playing games. So if we're all divided, that's just one more barrier for someone who wants to get into it to overcome. So that's, the economy plays a big role, both in our event and in role-playing games in general.
Yeah, there's a big boom in the comic book world because of the comic book movies, but I think role-playing games and this kind of entertainment doesn't get the attention it deserves, in my opinion, as well. So just to put it out there, AetherCon.com, check it out. AetherCon.com, November 15th. AetherCon, just to make sure.
We'll take it any way we can get it. You can call it anything you want, I promise.
And free to attend, and it's the cutting edge of role-playing, if you ask me.
And that was part one of our sizzling interview with the AetherCon people. Check them out at AetherCon.com. Check us out at CriticalHitMedia.com. And like our Facebook page, Facebook.com/Gamers of Comedy.